we'll learn.
Eliyahu, I mean, not Arya.
Yeah, in the schus of the neshama of Eliyahu ben Yeshayahu.
Yeshayahu, that's right.
And all those who have passed away in this terrible plague. And also in the schus of all those who need a refuah shlema. We have a lot of people
Please
that
God.
are not well.
Yael bat Naomi Hadassah, please, Rav.
Great, that as well. Any other names? Let's just throw them into the mix. And Bezrat Hashem, they will all have a refuah shlema.
Menachem Mendel ben Henke.
Menachem Mendel ben Henke. Who's
My
Menachem
brother-in-law got COVID.
You know,
and my sister-in-law.
Oh, sure. Well, I just, there's a when we say in the tefillah for refuah shlema, so we say bavusha and we say bavusha anu mitpalelim bavuram, because we're davening for them. So Rav Soloveitchik felt that wasn't a good thing to do, because he felt that some tefillahs are more heartfelt than others. And sometimes we just say the tefillah. So actually, you have to have a ma'aseh of some sort, some type of action upon which the thing is attached to. And so learning Torah, obviously, is the ultimate ma'aseh. As it's Talmud Torah keneged chulam. There's an amazing thing from the Kovetz Ma'amarim. I can't remember who the author is. I'm sorry, where he says that in the Birchas HaTorah, where we say that Talmud Torah keneged chulam, and we're talking about all different chesed acts before, so that kibbud avayim and helping the poor and being malave amais and all these are chesed acts. But how can you then tell me Talmud Torah keneged chulam? So he explains that the reason is because the ultimate chesed is the learning of Torah, because we know that that without Torah, the world will cease to exist. So really, when we learn, we impact in a very profound and deep way the existence of the world, and so more so when things need refuah. We say, I believe Hashem is mechadesh b'tuvo b'chol yom tamid. Kodesh Baruch Hu is mechadesh b'tuvo, that he's constantly being mechadesh. If he's constantly being mechadesh, then it means that from one second to the next, things can change dramatically. And we just got a daven that they change dramatically. Latov,
the positive,
and please God should only be good. Hashem is boirei refuos. He created refuos. Please God should be well. Okay, let's learn some Torah together. Having said that, what I want to look at is the narrative that happens in the parsha of how Moshe Rabbeinu responds to the attack, and it really is an attack, and it's a very profound attack of Korach and the 250 people. So they attack him, and they say to him, that it seems to be. On a simple level, just they're saying, you've engaged in some type of nepotistic thing where you've appointed Aaron as the leader, but we all could be leaders, and that's the one thing. But there is the Baal HaTurim quotes that if you look at the gematria of some of the words and of their wording, that the gematria is an implication that Moshe Rabbeinu was actually having an affair with somebody. And that follows on, which is quite something. And that follows on from the Lashon Hora that Miriam spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu. That the reason why, remember, we're trying to, what Korach and his chevra are trying to do is undermine Moshe. It's an absolutely personal attack. And so how do you undermine a person who's living on this highest level of Kedusha? By bringing in the lowest level of Tumah, which is inappropriate sexual behavior. And so what they do is they say Moshe Rabbeinu was having this relationship with another woman to try and undermine him. And once you see that, you can understand why Moshe Rabbeinu's reaction is so intense. That he pull up panav, he falls on his face, and everybody's like, "What's it for? Does he fall on his face for nevuah or for tefillah?" He's just like, "I can't handle this anymore." It would seem to be, but either way, what happens is that Moshe Rabbeinu, having engaged with the people, he says to them the following, and it's really quite powerful. He says to them, okay, I have no. Let's work out a plan. Zotasu, do this. Kachul lachem machtot Korach v'chol adato. You, Korach, and all the chevra, take machtot. What are machtot? Machtot are these fire pans. They're these things that are used in the Mishkan, the Beis Hamikdash, to bring up the fire, to bring the coals. And if you'll remember, the minute we speak about the machtot, we're talking. We have to immediately connect with Datan and Aviram, the sons of Aaron, who also brought their machtot. And if you remember, they brought their machtot because they had a desire of closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a deep, beautiful desire to connect with Hashem, but they did it in the wrong way. So Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, okay, guys, you bring your machtot, and put fire in them, and put the katoris on top of the fire, livnei Hashem machar, tomorrow morning in front of Hashem. And the one who HaKadosh Baruch Hu chooses, he's the one who's going to be the kadosh, the one who is chosen to be holy, meaning the Kohen Gadol. Rav lachem b'nei Levi, you've gone too far. So what is Moshe Rabbeinu telling them? So if you look at Rashi on this, Rashi tells us quite a beautiful statement. He says that he understood that there was something going on, and he understands that the people are trying to undermine everything that Moshe Rabbeinu stands for. And so what he says to them, he says, you know what, I want you to understand, the way you're behaving, the way Rashi seems to present it, is b'darchei hagoyim. That's the way the goyim behave. Why? That they bring all their different priests and all their different religious pertinences into b'bayit echad, and they bring it all into one place, and then they all start trying to daven. He said, but we're different. Why? Because ein lanu ela Hashem echad. We've only got one God. Aaron echad. We've only got one Aaron. V'torah achas. V'mizbeach echad. V'kohen gadol echad. We've only got one of all these things. And you, 250 people, what do you want? You want the kahuna gadola. You want to become the Kohen Gadol. You want that one single position. And in life, there's no one single, not everyone can have that one single position. That's a big lesson for everybody. I mean, we all, we want to be leaders, but perhaps we can't always be the Kohen Gadol, and that's okay. But when we have to accept that. He says, and if that's the case, by the way, says Moshe Rabbeinu, you're not the only ones who want it, I also want it. Why do I want it? Because that's the closest space you can get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. And if that's the case, then let's find what is the thing that is most appropriate for the Kohen Gadol. What's the thing that he has more than anybody else? And the one thing that the Kohen Gadol has more than anybody else is the taking of the Ketoret into the Kodesh Kodashim on Yom Kippur. Remember that. The taking of the Ketoret into the Kodesh Kodashim on Yom Kippur. So he says, fine, if that's the case, the Ketoret is the most important thing. But at the same time, you need to remember, he warns them. He says to them, the way Rashi presents it, that Sama Mavet Nitam B'tocha, it's also got a sting. The sting of the Ketoret is Shebo Nisrafu Nadav Avihu. That's why Nadav and Avihu got killed. If you remember, you're wanting to be part of this Kahuna Gadola, but that comes with difficult things because your level of accountability is also greater. And he says to him, okay, so let's see. What we'll do, you bring your fire pans, you bring the fire, you bring the Ketoros, and we'll see who HaKadosh Baruch Hu chooses as the Kadosh. Meaning, right, if you're the wrong people, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to burn you up in the same way as he did Nadav and Avihu. So, so the people just don't get the Musar. And Moshe Rabbeinu gets very upset. And he says to them, I don't know, I haven't done anything to them. Vayomer Moshe el Korach. Later on it says, Vayomer Moshe el Korach, Ata v'chol adatcha, hayu lifnei Adonai, Ata v'heim Aaron machar. He says, okay, you don't want to hear what I have to say? Tomorrow. You, all your chevra, and Aaron, tomorrow we'll meet. Ukchu, and he says, and ukchu, and let them take. Ish machtato is a repeat of what he had said to them, because now he's saying, you don't want to listen to me, so then we have to go through with this process. Take your machta and put ketoret on them, and bring them before Hashem. 50 machtot, 250 machtot, fire pans. Atav, Aaron, ish machtot. You and Aaron, each one of his fire pans. What the Netziv points out, that at this point in time, when Moshe Rabbeinu goes back, he doesn't say you must put fire on, because what is the issue of the fire is, the question is, when does the fire come on? So one of the things is the way he presents it is that they should always put the fire on first, and then you put on the ketoret. He says, no, it shouldn't be with fire. You shouldn't bring fire with it. Why? Because when there will be fire, that will come out. That the fire will come out from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and not coming off the fire pans. So no one will make a mistake that whatever is coming from is that fire that will burn, and we'll see what will happen, is that fire is not just a fire, perhaps someone spilled something, but it's a fire straight out from the Ribono Shel Olam. The Malbim says a very important part. He says the following. Initially, he had said the Shekol Adat Korach Yikhu Machtot, said that everybody must bring their machtot, even Datan and Aviram. And now he says no, that only the 250 people must bring them. Why? Because Datan and Aviram, they're not really part of this thing. And the first time he mentioned it, he didn't mention that Aaron will be part of it as well. But now he says that Aaron must be part of it. Why? Because Aaron is going to take his fire pan. Because Aaron, according to them, is also part of the Safek. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to show who did he choose? Who's the one that HaKadosh Baruch Hu really wants to be part of this? Is it going to be Aaron or the others? And I saw a very beautiful Perush where he says, I just want to find where it was. Give me 1 second. Sorry. But he explains that what's happening here is that it's these people are who are coming up are not just simply going against what Moshe Rabbeinu wants. They're not going against, but really what they're doing is actually being kofer be'ikav. They're coming against the very essence of what it is that that Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron are trying to build within the Jewish people. And it says, it's the Malbim as well. So he says the following: Mitzvah HaKatoret hu. The mitzvah of the Katoret is the following: Sheyitein HaKatoret ala eish bifnim. That you take the Katoret and you put the Katoret onto the fire when you get bifnim, when you actually get into the Kodesh Kodashim. And that's what they did on Yom Kippurim. Shehevi mi beit la parochet haya noten HaKatoret bifnim. That when the Kohen Gadol would come, he would put always the Katoret inside. And then we know that it had a certain substance in the Katoret that would make it smoke, and the smoke would then come and fill the entire chamber, except for the Tzedukim. Because the Tzedukim, if you remember, there were two groups, the one they called the Perushim and the one the Tzedukim. So the Tzedukim are these people that took things literally, the literal word of the Torah. Now, you can't take the literal word of the Torah because the Torah is so nuanced that we need the Torah Shebaal Peh to explain it. The Torah Baal Peh, that whilst the literal Torah seems to imply that you bring the fire and the Ketoret already burning into the Kodesh Kodashim, the Torah Shebaal Peh tells us that's not the way to do it. The way you do it is that you bring the fire with the Ketoret, and you put the Ketoret in the Kodesh Kodashim. The Tzedukim, hayu meshanim v'nadnu et HaKetoret mibachutz. The Tzedukim changed everything. They went against the Torah Shebaal Peh and did the Ketoret outside. And so therefore, v'chein Moshe amar lahim, sheyitkanu HaKetoret bifnim. Moshe tells them that you got to do everything where v'samu aleim HaKetoret livnei Hashem. You must put the Ketoret on livnei Hashem, in front of Hashem, which means in the inner chamber. So what happens is, we'll see the story now. Korach ve'adato shanu. Korach and Adato and his chevra do something different, because the Torah tells us that when they do come when they do come, it's a whole different way of it, right? Because what they do is that they put on the fire before they put on the ketoret before they come into the actual space. And if they put on before they come into the actual space, then they are doing what later in history will be what the Tzdukim do. In other words, they don't do it correctly. They do it against what the Torah Shabbal Peh is telling them to do. And that's why it says, they put the ketoret onto the fire pans outside the Ohel Moed. But Aaron doesn't do that. Aaron waits until it actually goes inside. And that's why it says Moshe and Aaron. It separates Moshe and Aaron. It says that they took the fire and they put the ketoret. They stood on the outside of the Ohel Moed. Moshe and Aaron. It says, why does it say Moshe and Aaron? They stand on their own. They haven't put the ketoret on the fire yet. And from here we see Tzatz Hazadon Me'adat Korach Lichpor B'Torah Shabbal Peh. Says, you know what the unbelievable issue is that the Korach was not only going against Moshe Rabbeinu, but it was going in against that which Moshe Rabbeinu represented to the Jewish people. Moshe, and if he could undermine this, then everything gets undermined. He was trying to undermine the Torah Shabbal Peh of Moshe Rabbeinu. Remember, Moshe, we've got a number of spaces. Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to Shamayim, he learns the entire Torah, he comes down, he's got a book, which a scroll, right? And in addition to that, he's got commentary on it. But who says that commentary is valid? Who says that commentary is the word of Hashem? Obviously, we believe that. But Korach was trying to undermine that. And how was he? Part of that is that he was prepared to do the ketoret outside of the Ohel Moed. The Torah tells us the wickedness of Korach. It wasn't just that he was arguing with Moshe, he was a complete heretic. Because if the only issue was where Moshe Rabbeinu did it on his own thinking, or it was actually the Shliach of Hashem, so then he would have feared. He would have been scared. He would have been scared to have done what he did, because maybe Moshe Rabbeinu was right. But he had absolute conviction that Moshe did this whole thing on his own. And once he does that, he denies. To the extent that it was such an interesting space that sometimes a person can have a certain idea in their head to the extent that they push it to such an absurdity. And his absurdity was that Hashem didn't send him to bring Torah mitzvahs into this world. In Cain, if that's the case, so what did he care where you put the ketoret? If nothing that Moshe Rabbeinu says is correct, then why does he have to worry about even the ketoret, if he has to put it inside or outside? And what does he do? He stands outside. And he gives and he puts it. And he does it outside. Why does he do it outside? Because he doesn't interested. He doesn't need to be in the inner chamber. The inner chamber is the place that Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron made up according to his thinking of where and how things should be. And on that it says, "Vayakel aleim Korach et kol ha'edah petach Ohel Moed vayark vayera kvod Hashem el kol ha'edah." That the people gathered together. Vayakel aleim Korach. And the way Rashi explains, what does it mean? How did he gather all the people? But divrei leitzanus. He gathered the people with scoffing. Kol halayla hu halach etzel hashvatim mipita motam. He would go through to all the different shvatim, and he would kind of convince them and seduce them and play with them and tell them jokes. And he would say, Kisvorim atem sha'alai levadi ani makpid. He would say to them, what do you think? I'm worried about myself. Ani makpid, ani makpid ela bishvilkechem. I'm worried about you guys. Eilu ba'in v'notlim min kol hagadlus. Lo malchus la'achiv akuna ad shenitatav. We say, they came, they took all the gadlus, they took everything. Nothing of what they do is valid. Everything that Moshe Rabbeinu says is a lie, not only about his brother, but everything, right? And then people would eventually say, hold on a second, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe there is an issue. But in response to that, Vayar Kavod Hashem, Kodesh Baruch Hu comes and presents himself in his honor in the Amud Anan at the in front of all the Edah, which gives them the sense of doubt, and it gives them this once again ignites their reverence. Sometimes we get so caught up in the mass hysteria of the moment that we need a certain moment to stop us. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings, the Anan, this cloud of glory, and people stop. And it's on that, and therefore it's on that Moshe, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I've now got their attention. He says, stand back, I'm going to annihilate them. And they say, hold on a second. It's unbelievable. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is prepared to destroy everyone. Why? Because they have been prepared to side with a person that doesn't believe in Moshe Rabbeinu. That's the ultimate insult to the Ribbon Shalom. You don't believe in me, you can't see me. But the person who took you out, the person who's helped you through, the person who's davened for you, everything like that. The one person that I've listened to, in inverted commas, in my approach, the way I've treated B'nai Yisrael, and even him you're not prepared to listen to. But even at that moment, where they are so hurt and they are so, in a way, ostracized by the entire community, they say it's not fair. Only one person's really done an Aveira. Only one person's really sinned. Ha'ish echad. And therefore, Rashi says, Hu ha'choter, ve'ata al kol ha'edatik tzov. It's only one guy who's done something really wrong. The others just got sucked up into the hysteria of everything. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu yafeh amartim. You're right. I'm now going to show who sinned and who didn't sin. And once again, we see Moshe Rabbeinu as the victor of everybody. And therefore he says, he says, everybody who doesn't want to identify with Korach and all his chevra, move away. He'alu misaviv. He'alu means to go up. Move yourself, elevate yourself, go back to the place that you were in your kedusha, in your connection. Vayakam Moshe vayelech el Datan Aviram. And Moshe Rabbeinu goes towards Datan Aviram and he says he's going to tell them what to do. And he says, move away from these evil people. Don't touch anything of them, because then you'll be wiped out because of their sins. And everybody's ya'alu. They all move away. They all go up. They all elevate themselves back into a space of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what do? They came out standing tall and arrogant. Rashi says, they come out standing in an arrogant way to really to shtuch. I don't know what other word it's used, to shtuch Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron. And and it's not only them, it's all of them. And then Rashi says, it says, look how bad this machlokas was. Because in a Beis Din, you can only punish people over the age of bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. But Beis Din Shalmaila, arestum shana, and in a Beis Din of on the Beis Din on high from 20 years old. But here, Vakan Avdu Afyon Keishadam, here, even children who were breastfeeding also died. Why? Because of the power of machlokas. Even if we look carefully, you'll see how Moshe Rabbeinu tried to get them to stop. He told them, you guys, remember, if you do this thing, you'll fall into the same classification of Datan and Aviram, which was actually an unbelievable comparison, because Datan and Aviram were trying to reach higher, great heights in a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. These people are presenting a machlokas. They weren't. They were just presenting, trying to connect. But he says to them, you'll be like Datan and Aviram. You'll fall in the same trap as them, meaning you'll get burnt up. And they still, their machlokas, their desire to create this pain for Moshe Rabbeinu was so great that they didn't even care about Neshayim, B'neihem, V'tapam. It's like the ultimate faribel. The faribel is where, where the grandchildren are still fighting with the other grandchildren and they don't really know why. That's the problem with machlokas. And here he says, so here, Ribono Shel Olam says that no matter who they are, no matter if they're involved in the machlokas, I don't want them as part of the Kal Hashem, as part of the people who are going to be part of my thing. And I think that really, for me, what this story is that in our lives we get so many opportunities to disconnect from machlokas, to avoid machlokas. Moshe Rabbeinu tells them over and over again, and he goes through a whole process with them and tries to avoid it. But nonetheless, they get sucked into it, and they get sucked into it. And why do we get sucked into machlokas? It's not because of the machlokas itself, and that's what the Malbim is telling us. It's not about the fact that he disagreed with Moshe Rabbeinu. There's something much deeper in it. That in this case, in the case of Korach, the depth was showing that he was a kofer, that he was a non-believer in the whole system. And just Moshe Rabbeinu was just that, was kind of like the korban of that system. Moshe Rabbeinu was the image, was the manifestation of that system, that Korach couldn't say, I don't believe in the Torah Shebaal Peh. He had to first undermine Moshe Rabbeinu. And I think part of that is, if we know that there's a beautiful Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, which speaks about the machlokes l'shem shamayim, a machlokes she'en l'shem shamayim. What does it mean, she'en l'shem shamayim? There is no value in it whatsoever. And where in this case the value is clear from Korach, that it's because the way the Malbim presents it is that because he didn't want to believe, and so he found a way out of it. And sometimes what we have to look at is and we all have machlokas with different things. It might even be internal machlokas. It might be an argument with a spouse, an argument with a sibling, an argument with a parent or a child, whatever the case is. There's always a certain level of machlokas. Most of them are just, we move on and we're able to, Baruch Hashem, because of our emotional intelligence to move away. But sometimes there's certain things that are there. And what we have to look at is to really understand, what is the machlokas really about? And we can understand what the machlokas is really about. Then we can unpin it from the way it manifests itself. The people here were unable to do that. Datan, Aviram, we don't even know that they just like suddenly come in there. They're always causing machlokas. Korach didn't want to be part of the system. And what's so sad is that these 250 people, they were so caught up in the mass hysteria of it that they also don't realize that the underpinning of the machlokas was not just a machlokas against Moshe, but it was a machlokas against Hashem himself. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates what he had created already, we say, at sunset on Erev Shabbos, the mouth of the earth. That's why it says v'imbriya yivra Hashem u'patzasa adama es pia u'vala otam. It says, and if Hashem will do a bria, what do you mean going to bria? You can't do a bria. A bria is a creation from nothing, which means it had already been created from nothing. Right at the beginning of creation, was just waiting to be to manifest itself. And how does it manifest itself? So the way Rashi presents it is that if it's a bria, Yivra Hashem lahamit otam b'mita shelo meit ba adam ad hena. It's going to be a death that no one has ever died in this way before. Why must it be a death that no one has ever died in this way before? Because it's something that they are so against, that they are rebelling against, which is something that no one's ever rebelled against before. For people to serve Avodah Zarah is one thing. But when you come and you witness everything, you yourself have witnessed what is going on, and still you're prepared to rebel against the absolute truth of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so then you can't die the normal death. Because in dying the normal death, it seems to imply that you just went through the process. And so therefore there needs to be a completely different thing to take you away. And I think that just for us to understand the importance of where where if we do, chas v'shalom, have any type of riv or any machlokas with others, what we need to really investigate is what is that? What is the underpinning of that? Because the underpinning of that is generally something that is much bigger than we think it is, and we don't want to be caught up in this hole. And we often do get swallowed up by these holes of our feelings, of our emotions, without trying to actually come and heal that which needs to be healed. So I thought I would share that with you. There were just some thoughts that I have on the Parsha. I wish everybody a beautiful day and lots of healing. And I think if we can heal the issues between us, we can heal the world in a much more beautiful place, that even if there is pain and suffering, that pain and suffering is lessened because of our connections to one another. Have a beautiful day, everybody. God bless.
You too, Rav.
Thank you.